just graduated from the Flatiron School taking the data science track because I'm looking to change my career trajectory and to see where that will go. So part of what I'd like to do is start going through Python with everybody, just essentially because the only way to really learn it is to practice it and to really just sort of dig in, because while Python from the data science perspective isn't necessarily going to be about development or programming per se, it is very important to have that skill if I'm looking to get into like the real pure play data science positions. So where I'm focused on going is associate data scientist. That's my plan. And so I'm going to be putting together a series of videos that will hopefully show my ability technically. In particular, I'm going to focus on Python and SQL. So today we're going to be starting with Coding Bat. Coding Bat is really great because it's a very low pressure way to get into practicing Python and also being able to actually just sort of parse through what some of these questions that are going to be asked on a technical interview could be like. So eventually I'd like to work my way up to lead code. But I'm not there yet. Where I'm at right now is right here with the warm-up. So that's what we're going to start with today. The other thing that I wanted to let you guys know is that there is a IDE for learning Python specifically, and that's a development environment called Thonny. And so I'm going to be using that to help answer questions and to help debug my code when I'm trying to run these to see if I can get the solution to be correct without having to look at it. So that's what we're going to be doing today. And today we're going to start with warm-up 1. So the parameter weekday is true if it is a weekday. And the parameter vacation is true if we are on vacation. So what this means is that if it's a weekday, it is true. But also if it's if we're on vacation, it's also true. If we sleep in if it's not a weekday or we're on vacation. So if it's not a weekday or we're on vacation, we will sleep in. So what we want to do is we want to return true if we sleep in. So to break this down, let's look at a couple of things. The first one is that, okay, well, looks like, okay, yep, we're going to make a function, and the function is sleep in. And so we've got our function here to be called, and then it looks like we've got our arguments. And so in this case, our argument is weekday and vacation. And because we're working with true or false, we're working with binary, so it's either true or it's either false. And so there are a couple of ways that we could go about this. I think that the first thing we could do if we wanted to is we could start with an if statement. So we could say, well, we should probably be in the field to do it. Okay, cool. So we could start with if. So if, let's see, weekday is equal to true, right? That's a thing. Let's put that in parentheses, right? So we'll do that. And then we'll do and another parentheses, and vacation is equal to true. Then we want to return true, right? And then what we want to do is maybe an else. And so then we'll say else if weekday is equal to false and vacation is equal to, well, I don't know if this is actually going to be a thing. Well, let's check it out, right? So let's see what happens here. So if weekday is equal to false and vacation is equal to false, then that's going to be return false. So let's see what happens when we run this. Invalid syntax. Okay, so I didn't even like anything I did. Line 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, I think I need to do else, and then I need to do if. So let's see what happens here. Expected an indent block. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. That's fair. So let's do that. Okay, so what did we learn? we learned that this is definitely not the solution, right? And it's probably because I'm not taking into consideration some of the other things that it could be. So let's do this. Let's look and see why. So I'm going to grab this guy, and I'm going to go here, and I'm going to put it in to Thani. And then the other thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to grab one of these. Because neither one of these, well actually all three of these didn't work. So the only one that worked was this one. So let's grab this guy, right? And then let's grab this guy. And this one, last one. So this is what we're going to do. And this is why Thani is really, really cool. What this does is this will actually help us debug what our code is doing in Python so that we can see when we are adding our arguments what exactly is happening within the code. In particular, we're going to see why this doesn't actually work. So we're going to debug the current script. And the debugger is really cool because what it does is it allows us to be able to step over lines of code or step into lines of code. So in this case, we're going to step over this, right? Because we know that there are no errors because I ran it on this and it was fine. So we can step over that. We don't need to debug or evaluate that. So we're going to do that. Then the next thing that we're going to do is, okay, cool. We've got our function and we've got it loaded into memory. So now what we're going to do is we're going to call the function and we're going to give it 2 arguments. And this argument is going to say weekday is false, which means that it's not a weekday. And vacation is false, which means that we're not on vacation. So this makes sense. It would expect to return true, right? And the reason why it would expect to return true is because we sleep in if it's not a weekday and it's not a weekday. But we did it wrong. We ended up with false. So let's see why. So we're going to step into this guy right here. You're going to see it's going to load up what the program is actually doing. And I got to get better about how I talk about these things, and that's kind of also the point, right? Because in looking to interview for data science for positions or in trying to just be able to communicate effectively what I'm doing with code, I just have to practice talking about it. So that's why I'm here. Okay, so then the next thing is, okay, so it's going to evaluate each of the arguments. First, it's going to check and see that that one is false. It's going to say, yeah, it's definitely false. It's going to look at that one and say, yeah, that's definitely false. So it's going to say, all right. In our entire thing, we've got what our values are, or in terms of what our arguments are for our function. So let's actually go ahead and go through the function. So you'll see that we loaded our local variables with vacation being false and weekday being false. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to run through these and see what it turns out to be. So the next step is going to say, okay, if weekday is equal to true and vacation is equal to true. So what it's going to do now is it's going to take this guy that says weekday and false, and I think it's going to put it in here. And so what this is going to say is false is equal to true, and that's going to be false. And then it's also going to say that false is equal to true, and that's going to be false. So this is going to be false and false, I think. So let's see. So we step into it. It's going to evaluate weekday. It's going to grab weekday. What is weekday? Weekday is false. This says it's true. Therefore, false, right? Cool. And so then the next one, oh yeah, and so I guess, that's interesting. Did you see that? It didn't actually evaluate this one. It just stuck with this one. Is it going to go evaluate it? No, it didn't. Because this was already false. So I wonder if I need to do an OR here. But anyway, we can see that now it's going to go, oh, I know what it's going to do, right? Because it's going to say that false is equal to false. And because this is going to be satisfied, it's not going to evaluate this, and it's just going to return false. So we know that this is definitely some broken code, because it's not doing what we need. Because look, it's just going to do false here. Wait, what? Oh, right. False equals false turns out to be true. Okay, cool. I get it. So that's going to be true because false is equal to false, and therefore it turns that value actually into true. Is it going to evaluate? Oh, so it does evaluate the next one because this. Okay, cool. So then false equals true. So this is going to be true, and then even though it's true and true, it's going to, because we told it to, return false. which is why we get the incorrect answer, because it will now say that this one is false overall when we know that we want it to actually be true. So how do we fix this? What do we want to do with this? Well, there's a couple of things. I think that we could continue making a bunch of if statements to see that if we could cover exactly every single thing. And what I mean by that is to see if we could cover every single use case. But I wonder if there's an easier way to do this. And the reason why is because I know that what we can do is we can return something, right? And we're only dealing with Boolean values. So what do we want? We want to return true. That's the main thing that we want to do. We don't actually care about false. So having this return false doesn't actually matter, because these show as none. That's pretty interesting. Man, this stuff. There's so much to learn and so much to talk about in terms of how all of this fits together, but we're going to try something different here. We're going to try to do not over here. We're going to try and do not weekday. So if we go to not weekday, okay, what would that do? So if weekday is going to be true, and we sleep in if it's not a weekday, well, what are the requirements that we would need to be able to return true? Well, we need it to not be a weekday, right? Because if it is weekday, it would already say true. And so if it's not weekday, this would be able to, if this read true, this would say not true. If this read false, this would say not false, and it would evaluate to true. So then what we're going to do is we're going to take our second argument, and we're going to say or, right? Because we just learned that and, if this requirement is satisfied, it won't make it to the second one. And I think that that's true. I think that that makes sense. I don't know if I'm right or not, but I think that what this means is that if it evaluates here, it doesn't need to move to this one. But this one, we're saying if it's this or this, so we'll have to evaluate both. And so if it's not a weekday or vacation, I think this might be a thing. I think it might be a thing. So let's see. Okay, cool. So it did like that. The thing is that I don't know exactly why it liked that, only because I don't know how to explain it. So what we're going to do here is we're going to actually now torch this entire thing that we wrote here that we know definitely doesn't work. And we're going to do this. We're just going to say return. Why doesn't? Okay, cool. So we're going to say, oh, right, I have to stop debugging so that I can, okay, cool. So now what we're going to do is we're going to say return, and we're going to look at this. So not weekday or vacation. So let's check out why this works. Okay. So debug, remember we're going to step over this guy because we don't need it, and we're actually going to step into this one. It's going to grab what our values are, and it's going to bring us into running it through the function. So let's see why this single line of code is far more efficient than what I had written previously. So in stepping into it, okay, it's going to now evaluate the one statement that we're making. And it's going to say, okay, not weekday. So let's see what this does. It's going to say that weekday is false, right? Yep. And so now this is going to say not false, which means that it's going to turn itself into true. Okay, so not weekday. So in this case, weekday was false, so it already wasn't a weekday. And having it not weekday, this is sort of confirming it. This is saying, yeah, That's definitely true. It's true that this is not a weekday, right? And so then the next thing we do is we go over here. Wait, why doesn't it evaluate? I have to see this. I have to see what's going on here, because I guess it just needed to satisfy the one. Well, let's look. Okay, so this one is going to say return not weekday or vacation. And in this case, it's going to say weekday is true. So it is a weekday. So that's going to say true, but then it's going to say not true. And so that this will be false. So then will it go to vacation then? Okay, so look. See, it's going to grab it. It's going to say this is true. So it's not true. It's false. Okay? And then, okay, and that's where it's going to evaluate, because I think what happens here is that if it gets true on the first argument, it will just return true because it's already reached what it needs to do. It knows that we need to sleep in because it was not a weekday. Whereas in this case, it's not a weekday, so it's false, right? And so then it's going to move on with this or, because the requirement is different from and. If it was and, then I think it would need both requirements to be true in order for it to return true. But in this case, it's going to be or, so it's one or the other. So in this case, it's going to say vacation, and since we know that vacation is false, wait, what's going to happen? So false or false. And so this is going to return false. So it's going to say, because it's a weekday and we're not on vacation, which is a lot easier to say if I think about it. Oh, cool. Okay, so then when we get to this next guy, it's not a weekday, and we are on vacation. So we are going to sleep in. So if we go into this, it's going to say, well, weekday, it's not a weekday, which is false. Boy, this, yeah, okay. Well, I think that we can feel pretty lukewarm about my explanation of this. And I think that that's okay, right? Because we're just going to practice and we're going to get better. And hopefully, as I do this series and continue to do it, I will get better at explaining exactly what's going on. I sort of conceptually get it, and I think that that's the place that we need to be. So let's actually look at the solution. We're going to see that this is the solution. And then also, oh, I guess I didn't need to do an additional statement. But see, yeah, that's why we're here to practice. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the next one. Okay, so monkey trouble. Let's go ahead and clear out what we've got here. Oh, we're going to stop this, and we're going to clear out what we've got here, and we're going to look at this guy. Okay, so we have two monkeys, A and B. And the parameters A underscore smile and B underscore smile indicate if each is smiling. So A indicates A underscore smile as if monkey A is smiling and B, okay, cool. We are in trouble if they are both smiling or if neither one of them is smiling. And I think that's fair. So what do we want to do? Well, we want to return true if we are in trouble. Okay, so a couple things. We learned in this last question that we could probably do this in one line. The next thing that we learned is that it's all based on how our arguments are evaluated. So what do we want to do? We want to return true if we're in trouble. And how do we know if we're in trouble? Well, we know we're in trouble if both are smiling or if neither of them is smiling. So we got two monkeys, right? So what we want to do is we want to say, okay, we'll return. So it would be true if A smile is equal to B smile, right? because is that all we need? I'm gonna guess that that's all we need, right? Because if this is true and this is true, then they're both smiling. And if this is false and this is false, then neither one of them is smiling. And this statement right here, these answers true and true, is really, it's actually just evaluating whether or not the result of this is going to be true of the entire thing. Yeah, I think we can feel good about this. Let's go ahead and go. Sweet. Okay, cool. So this one makes total sense, and it's a lot easier for me to wrap my head around, and I think it's because it's the lack of the double negative of the not weekday, and this one is just like if it is or it is. So if we actually just took these guys right here, you can totally see this is going to be good, because I think I can explain this one. So the way that this works here, oops, let's do that guy, get rid of that, and get rid of that. Cool, now we're going to jump in. So we're going to step over our function, we're going to look at this guy, and it's going to grab this, right? So a smile is equal to true, which means it's going to be true. B smile is equal to true, so it's going to be true. Now we're going to jump into our function, and this is what we're going to evaluate. We were given two arguments for the function monkey trouble, and the arguments that we were given was true and true. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to plug in these arguments into what our return statement is, and hopefully we have the right answer. So in this case, it's going to be that a smile is going to be evaluated to true, right? And B smile is going to be evaluated to true, which is great, because what this means right now is that true is definitely equal to true. So we're going to return back here that this statement is true, which is cool. And then also, because it's literally just the opposite, we know that in walking through this guy, well, A is going to be false and B is going to be false. And because A as false is equal to B as false, that actually changed the statement to true. So it is a true statement that both of them were false. And what that does is then that returns exactly what we need, right? Because we need to return true if we are in trouble. And we're in trouble if they're smiling or they're not smiling. Now, the interesting thing is going to this next guy. So this next guy has two statements. And this is cool because what this does is this shows us that, well, one monkey's smiling and one monkey isn't smiling. And because the only conditions that we need for us to be in trouble is if they are both smiling or both not smiling, we're going to evaluate this and see that, yes, monkey A is smiling, but monkey B is having a bad day. False. The statement is false. Therefore, real cool. That one I feel a lot more confident about explaining, because it's a lot easier in terms of like the trickiness of the double negative and how that's evaluating. I bet you I could probably go back and check out that other one. Maybe tomorrow I'll be better at explaining it. That's really what we're going for. So let's go to yeah, that's pretty cool. You can see. So essentially it's just taking both of these if statements and turning it into just really the bare bones of what it needs to be. And that to me is one of the more challenging things about Python, because according to the inventor of Python, there should be one fairly obvious solution. But what I'm finding is that there never is a fairly obvious solution, and so now it's more just understanding what I'm writing to see how it works, to see what happens, to see what the solution would be. So let's go to the next question. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. Let's go here. All right, so given two int values, int being integer, return their sum. Unless the two values are the same, then return double their sum. Okay, wait, so let's break this down. Given two integer values, so those are our arguments. So this is going to be 1 and 2. Return their sum. Okay, so we got these guys, 1 and 2. These are our two values. Sum is 3. Unless the two values are the same. So in this case, 2 and 2 return double their sum. Okay, so I think that there's a couple of ways that we want to slice this. First, I think what we want to do is let's just get what happens if we add them together. So let's do that. So that is the sum of A plus B, right? And I think that what we can do now is we can say, well, hey, if, right? If, how do we want to do this? Oh, I bet you we could do if A is equal to B, return sum times 2, right? That could be cool. And then what we could do is we could say, well, else, because we have another else, we could say if, oh, actually we could just do else return sum, right? So before I run this, I want to see, what this does, because I feel pretty good about this. And you know why I feel good about this? Because I can kind of explain it. What this is going to do, I think, this is my theory, is that we're going to have it evaluate 1 and 2. So here's 1 and 2. Well, sum is going to be a new variable that we're going to create, and this is going to equal to 1 plus 2. So this is going to be 3. And then what it's going to do is it's going to say, well, if A is equal to B, and it's going to say if 1 is equal to 2, so then this will turn into false, which means that this will then skip this return statement, and it will just return, yeah, I feel good about it. Let's see what happens here. Okay, so we're going to put this guy here, and let's just get rid of these arrows here. Okay, so let's debug this guy. So we're going to step over that and go right into our function. Okay, so 1 and 2, right? Just like we were thinking. Okay, cool. So we can see that A is 1 and B is 2. Now what we're going to do is we're going to actually, I think we're going to sum them up. We're going to go, okay, A plus B, so 1 plus 2, boom, 3. Amazing. And look, sum, 3. Now it's going to say, okay, well, if A, 1, equal to B, 2, false, return sum. So this guy is going to go sum being 3, return 3, feel real good about it. So I think this, so now where we're at is, let's see if this covers all of the edge cases. And actually I'm going to take out, oh wait, we could step over it. So let's do step over that one. Oops. Cool. All right, so let's step into this one, because this is the other case that we want to see, because we know that 1 and 2 will work, so presumably 3 and 2 will work. So let's look at 2 and 2, because that's our other thing. We need to return double their sum. Okay, so let's step into it. Let's look. Okay, so 2 and 2. Go to our function. Okay, so sum. So 2 plus 2, that's going to be 4. Now if A, 2, equal to 2, return, because that's true. So far so good. Now it's going to go to return, and then it's going to go the sum, which is 4. Yep. Times 2, which is doubling it, which should give us 8. And it's going to return 8. Solid. Solid. Okay. So this one, I think this one, we feel good about this one. Yeah. Ooh, we even got a gold star. That's pretty great. So, wonder about that. Oh, found 2 spaces, expected 4. May be ignored if you are happy with your program. Thanks, Thani. I think I'm happy with it, but I wonder if it would actually matter. So here, let me do 1, 2, and then 1, 2. That's line 2, that's line 3. This is expecting 8. So there are 4 already. So 1, 2, 3, 4. That should be 8. 2. Okay, so then 1, 2, and then 1, 2, 3, 4. So do you like that better? Well, it's analyzing. Hey, cool. Okay. I'm going to need to understand why it ran with literally half the indents. Okay. Anyway, that's a thing to ask someone who knows way more about Python than I do. Okay. So let's go to the next one. Okay, so given an int n, so integer n, so 19, 10, and 21, return the absolute difference between n and 21, except return double the absolute difference if n is over 21. Oh boy. Okay, so let's see how we're going to approach this guy. So to approach this one, given an int n, return the absolute difference between n and 21. Well, there's one thing that I definitely know, and I know that ABS stands for absolute value. And so difference between n and 21, so what we'll do is we'll do n minus 21, right? Because to talk about this, and I think it's a fair thing to say, so this is not a intro to Python. This is sort of assuming that there's a little bit of a background and understanding and a couple of things related to Python. So what this absolute value thing is this is, I believe it's a method or an operator. And essentially what this does is this is something that was already written in Python that knows how to do the specific thing when given the argument. And what that means is that right here, the argument n minus 21, it means that if I take 19 and I minus 21, well, the absolute value of doing that math, because if we just did n minus 21, that would mean it would be 19 minus 21, which means it would be a negative number because 21 is bigger and it's a negative value. But here, what this would mean is that we're really just getting the difference between 19 and 21 and making it, absolute values will always be positive. It will always be the absolute value. And I wish that I knew a better way to explain it, but I know that, to recap, ABS is a method that takes in an argument and will return the absolute value of that integer. So I would imagine that ABS also can only take integers and floats, because integer and float are the numerical ways of working with, or they're the data types in Python. So that's the first thing we know, right? We know that we need to return the absolute difference between n and 21. So, cool. That's a place to start. And then the other thing is that we also want to return double the absolute difference if n is over 21. So like the last one, we just did the sum times 2. But this guy is if it's over 21. So we're gonna want greater than over 21. So we're not gonna do equal to. So if we do greater than, then what we'll do, absolute value of n minus 21 is, oh wait, well how do we get to, so let's just figure out what we're gonna do for the first step. So return the absolute value between, so could we just do this? Return absolute value of n minus 21. So I'm going to try this. Okay. So the first part of this statement will work. So then how can we get this to do what we want to do? So I think what we could do, because there are negatives in here, so the first thing we'll do is we'll write a if, right? So if n is greater than 21, n is greater than 21, then the next thing that we'll do is, oh wait, we could do this. Absolute value of n minus 21 times 2, right? And then we could say here, else return ABS n minus 21. So let's see if that works. Here's my reasoning. We're covering our secondary statement with this, because no matter what, we know that this line works, return absolute value, because look at this does the things that we need it to do, right? And so that's our kind of like, no matter what, this is the thing that you know you can do. But since there are different things that we want to evaluate depending on the argument, I think is the right way to say that. What we want to do first is we first want to see if it matches this specific requirement. So every time now I wonder if computationally this makes a difference, right? Because what this does is this needs to do two things. Well, it needs to evaluate every single n and see if it's greater than 21. Which I guess is fine, because it's a if it is greater than 21, it'll do this. If it's not greater than 21, then it'll do this. So yeah, let's see if that worked. Bingo, it totally did. And it makes sense why it worked. So we'll just do one, just to solidify that. So let's go down here. Oh, also, I bet you I need to do, what, one tab here, one tab here, one tab here, and one tab here. Okay, and then we'll do just one of them because we just want to see. So diff 21, we'll do 50. Okay, so we'll debug, we'll step over that, step into this. It's going to grab, okay, 50, n is 50, right? So now it's going to say, well, if 50 is greater than 21, it's going to be true. So now it's going to return the absolute value. So it's going to grab 50 minus 21, and that's going to make it 29. And then 29 times 2 is apparently 58, which was new to me. Multiplication very quickly is well, math's kind of my white whale, but like I'm getting there, and I very much respect it. It's the fast computation that sometimes makes my brain melt, but that's cool. Look at that. Okay, so then I actually do want to see one more. I want to see what happens with this absolute value thing where it will be a negative. So actually, I wonder what we could do is, could we put in anything that we want? What happens if we do negative 100? So we're going to step over that guy, we're step over that guy, we're going to step into this one, and we're going to look at it and say, okay, okay, so if n is greater than 21, I'm going to say no, because it's false. Yep. So now it's going to return to that. Okay, cool. So now this is where we can see what will happen. You can see that there are two negatives here, and this will really show off what the ABS method does. So it's going to say, okay, well, negative 100, right, minus 21. So that's actually going to be negative 121, because two negatives can add together. Yes, please be, okay, cool. And so now what this means is that the absolute value of negative 121 is actually just 121. And that's what absolute value means. Cool. Okay, okay. It really is a warm-up. We're getting to where we need to be. So let's take a, oh, wow, found 6 spaces, expected 4. I'm going to learn about this spaces thing. Okay, so let's take a look at this guy. We have a loud talking parrot. The hour parameter is the current hour time in the range 0 to 23. Again, we're in trouble. What's it with us and animals and trouble? Okay, we're in trouble if the parrot is talking and the hour is before 7 or after 20. Okay, so there's two things here. We're in trouble if the parrot is talking. So parrot, let's see. Okay, so I think that that's going to be this first argument here. So in this case, this parrot is talking. And the hour is before, oh, there's three things. Before 7 or after 20. Return true if we're in trouble. Okay, so what are the ways that we can be in trouble? Parrot has to be true. So no matter what, the parrot has to be talking. So true, and then less than 7, greater than 20. Those are the three things that we need, right? So parrot talking, true. Hour before 7, so that's going to be less than 7. And then, or after 20, that's going to be greater than. And it looks like we only care about if we're in trouble. So I think we might be able to do one of those fancy return talking, right? Because talking is either true or false. So if it's false, that means you're not talking. So return talking. We have to have talking. So I guess this would be what? Talking equal true. We're going to put that in parentheses. And, right? Because we need to do two things. And so this is going to be the thing. We're going to say hour, right? Because that's the argument. And what is hour? Well, hour is going to be, what, less than 7, right? But I think this gives it away, right? Or. So what we'll want to do is or here, and then hour, it's got to be greater than 20. So I feel pretty confident about this, because what this means is that this will return, well, if talking in this case is true, this is going to be true. And then I don't know if this is going to work, because I can't explain what's going to happen. So this would evaluate here. This would be true equals true, and then it would. I don't know if it's actually going to go here or if it's just going to return true, because it's going to. Okay, so let's see what happens, right? Let's just break it down in with our buddy Thani. Okay, so let me grab these ones over here. Let's grab that. Oh, no, wait. I want all three. Okay, so we're going to see what happens with this. So let's do this over here and this over here. Okay, so alright, so we're going to debug. So Great Suspender is pretty great. What it does is, if you are like me and you have a bazillion tabs open, Great Suspender will actually pause them so that Chrome doesn't eat all of your resources. It's pretty great, and that's funny. Okay, so we're going to go through here and step into this one just to see what will happen. Okay, so true and 6. So we know that we're definitely in trouble here. But let's see if the code knows that we're in trouble, if our computer knows we're in trouble. Okay, so talking, true, equal true, what's it going to do? Is it going to go, okay, so what it did is it found the first one, said that it's true, and because it's an and, it now needs to evaluate these. And this is where it's going to say, okay, hour less than 7, so 6 less than 7, true. So this is going to be return true and true. So I think it's just going to be return true? Yes. Cool. Okay. Now this one actually means that we're not in trouble, Because even though the parrot's talking, the hour is 7. And this is saying before 7, so not including. And so because we don't have a less than or equal to, this is going to evaluate to false. Yeah, that's what it says over here. So this guy should be false. So we'll know we'll have the right answer if this turns out to be false. And let's see what happens. Well, first it's going to say talking. Well, that's true, and that's fine. Because in this case, hour, 7, less than 7, false. And then, oh, it's also got to evaluate the other one. Okay, so 7 is greater than 20. That's also false. So now we've got true and false or false. So I think this is just going to evaluate to be just false. Yep. Now I don't know. Is it going to take this one? Is it going to take this one? Is it going to say true and false, and that will make it false? Man, there's that whole lesson about operators. I got to go back and look at that. But I think what's going to happen is that because this is going to be true and false, this will turn into false. I can't tell you why, but that was my gut. I think that that's why that did that. Okay, so looking at the last one, it should make sense because parrot's not talking. So it actually doesn't matter because to satisfy the requirement, the parrot has to be talking. And so it's false. Okay, cool. All right, so let's do another one. Okay, so given two integers, a and b, return true if one of them is 10 or if their sum is 10. So return true if one of them is 10 or if there's, okay, well, what we want to do is we want to say return what? Let's do what? A equals to 10 or B equals 10, right? That's the first one. And then we're going to put here or, right? And now what we would do is we'll say A plus B is, oops, let's do A plus B equal to 10. Because if true, yeah. That's why we have the or, not and, because we want either one of these to be, and we want to put a space here to make it look pretty. Okay, I feel real good about this one. Well, that's what I get for feeling good about it. Okay, why did that break? Why is that not working? Invalid syntax. What's broken? Why is that broken? Because it won't even run. So let's see where this actually breaks. Oh, I can't even do it. Oh, equal. Ah, thank you. So this was helpful. If you look down here, in this, it doesn't show you what the error is, so we've got a little bit more robust, and this is pointing directly to exactly why it's not working. And the reason why it's not working is because in order to make something equal to something in Python, you have to have double equal. So I bet you now we can feel pretty good about this. Booyah. And it just makes sense, right? Because of everything that we just learned today in what we were doing and how these things work together and how they end up evaluating to be whether it's true or false and what takes precedence. So in this case, if something were to be true here, actually false here, but true here, because it's an OR, I think it would, yeah, obviously, right? Whoa, this one's interesting. Actually, I want to see how this one works. Look at that. Because it satisfies all kinds of requirements. So if we go here and we run this guy, let's see what happens. So debug. Oh, you still don't like, yeah, that's fair. Okay, now debug. So step over that guy, step into this guy. Okay, so 10 and 10. So this is going to be really interesting because A is equal to 10. True. So I guess it doesn't, it won't even evaluate B. I bet you it'll move to the next statement. Yep. So it overall just made that blanket one true. Oh. And it doesn't actually even matter. But that's interesting, right? It doesn't matter that it satisfies. Oh, wait. Oh, if their sum is 10. That's because I'm insane. It totally makes sense. All of it makes sense. And I think that we should feel really proud of our computer for knowing how to do that. Okay, so let's go to the next one. All right. Given an int n, return true if it is within 10 of 100 or 200. Note absolute. Okay, wait. So given an int n, so 93, return true. Oh, if it's within 10 of 100 or 200. Note absolute num computes the absolute value of a number. Okay. So this one's going to be, okay, so within 10 of 100 or 200. Well, how do I even tell if this number is within, any given number is within 10 of 100 or 200? Okay, so let's see if we can do 100. So if n oh wait, what if I did if the absolute value of n minus 100 or absolute value of n minus 200, and I think what we want to do is, we can't do it where we combine them this way, so we're going to need some parentheses here in a second, I think. So if the absolute value of n minus 10, or I'm sorry, n minus 100 is, let's go with less than or equal to 10, or the absolute value of the number minus 200 is less than or equal to 10, return true. So if 93, so that's going to be 7, so that's going to be less than or equal to 10. That will be true. It will return true. Oh wait, I bet you I don't even need to do that. Can I just do this? How do you take out that? All right, let's see. Let's see what happens. Sweet. Okay. That totally makes sense. Right? Because it has to satisfy either or. And what this does is this n minus 10 is that within 10. So whatever the number is, you subtract either 100 or 200 from it. And if it's within that range, so less than or equal to 10, then it will return true, and then if not, it will have to return false. Okay. Um, Thank you. This was really helpful. Thank you guys for joining and taking a look. This is the first part of a series where I really, like I said, I need to learn how to data science, and large components of it are Python and SQL. So I will be putting together a series of just working through these, hopefully to work up to all the way through the warm up. Because the funny thing is that this is just warm up one. There are a whole bunch of things, and I just plan on going through all of it with you guys because I really want to learn how to communicate what is happening with Python with code, and to be able to speak to that, and also just nail technical interviews. So that's the plan. Thank you, everybody. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and take care.